All right, now we're live. Excellent. So we're still about 30 seconds to a minute early, so I'm just going to check and make sure that everybody on the Hangouts page can see us. And perfect. And I need to add a message about if All right, perfect. Why don't we go ahead and jump in? So, hello everybody. This is Corey Huff with theabundantartist.com, and I'm very excited to have you here today for our first Abundant Artist featured artist talk. Today we're here with Belinda Fireman and Michelle Levon, which we'll introduce them more in a moment. But first I want to introduce our curator for July. Her name is Jolene Gardner, and Jolene, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us, and thank you for all of your work in coming through all the artist submissions. Jolene is a writer, an artist herself, and a lawyer for creative people. So Jolene, thank you for joining us, and why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about how you came into some of the stuff that you're doing now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Corey. And hi, Michelle. Hi, Belinda, and everyone else out there. Really, I started out as an attorney and really started getting into art, not my own art. I didn't really realize I had any painting abilities until I entered my first show and won an award. So I took that as confirmation and ran with it. So it's been since 2011 that I've actually um, have identified as an artist, and it's been a blast. And I still practice law. I went from practicing criminal law to practicing entertainment law. So I represent other creative professionals, and I've just been having such a grand time infusing art into my life. And I came across the Abundant Artist when I was researching myths about the starving artist, and then with the Google search, Corey's information popped up, and I said, "Oh, this is cool. This is really cool, busting the myth." And definitely a myth. I do not believe that artists starve, so I'm just happy to be here and others to support.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to do this. I mean, this is the idea of having featured artists on The Abundant Artist is long, long overdue. We've got an amazing community of artists. We've got almost 10,000 people that are on the mailing list that goes out every week. And then on theabundantartist.com, we've got almost 60,000 unique readers each month. So, and 95% of them are visual artists like Belinda and Michelle. So I feel like I'm long overdue in acknowledging some of the really talented artists in the community, and so we're hopefully going to be able to do these featured artist events. I'm hoping every month, but we'll see how things go and what the response is from the community. So thanks again to all of the beautiful, beautiful readers out there, and the people who watch our podcast, and the people who are watching here today. So thanks a lot, everybody. And Jolene, why don't we jump in and let our artists introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their backgrounds, and we'll let them talk about some of their art. So our first featured artist is Michelle Levon. Michelle, we're having a hard. I think Jolene, I think we're having a hard time with your audio. While she gets that sorted out, we'll talk a little bit about Michelle. So I met Michelle.
Okay, let me.
So, are you there now? Okay. So I met Michelle
Yeah,
about.
I can hear you fine. It was kind of grumbly.
Okay. Okay. Can you, if I lean in a little bit, is that a? Oh, you know what? You know what's going on. excuse us with our technical difficulties here. I figured this out. My headphones are so sensitive that the wire my headphones connected to. There we go. All that interference should be gone now. Is that interference gone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. I figured out that the wire from my headphones is so sensitive that my microphone picks it up. I don't really understand, but hopefully if I don't move like this, we'll get you'll be able to hear me just fine without interference. So I first met Michelle a few months ago, about 6 months ago, when Michelle jumped into a course that I did, an online marketing course that I did for artists, and she has the brilliant idea of painting selfies. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about that and why that is. Oh, looks like we lost Belinda. Hopefully she'll rejoin us momentarily. Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background as an artist and how you came to be painting selfies?
Well, I've got a BFA in painting. So I went to college to paint, and of course I also had a technical degree in graphic design, and so I've worked in the art field from graphic design to gallery manager all my working life. And about 3 years ago, I went out on my own and started an art print business, and which gave me all sorts of opportunity for me to paint. When you work 8 hours a day, it makes it difficult to find the time with family and everything. Of course, my son grew up; he was 18, and so now I have time to paint. And I love to paint the figure, and what I was having difficulty doing was finding a subject. Last summer, I went out and did a show called Encounters Alla Prima, and I went to our local art district every Saturday morning from 10 to noon and painted. I grabbed people off the street, videotaped their stories. They had to tell me a story, and then I'd paint their portrait while they told me their story. About 30 minutes or so. And that got a pretty good reception, and but you know, just Saturday mornings wasn't enough for me. I wanted to paint more often than that, and so I decided that I would just do selfies. And well, you know, selfies became kind of a big subject online, and there was a lot of conversation about how narcissistic they were, and I just don't really feel that they're that narcissistic. I think that that's a natural human way for us to communicate on such a cold medium. So I thought, well, why don't I just do selfies? I'll paint them rather than just taking a quick photograph, and I'll be able to maybe I can get people to relate to my ideas about social media and how we relate to one another in this brave new information world.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, I totally identify with what you're saying there about the idea of the selfie being a natural human experience, right? Like, I just look at the history of painters. Like, every painter has done, you know, a handful of self-portraits, some more than others, and I don't think it's pure narcissism. I think there's more to it than that. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit more?
Well, to start off with, I was really concerned about looking really narcissistic. For 60 days, I painted a selfie a day. I set aside my mornings to paint a selfie and then write something about it and post it. That got a little overwhelming. Sometimes I make myself do too much because I was getting overwhelmed. And the thing is, what I discovered was that people were really resonating with them. And then these arguments about narcissism, they redefined what I was doing in comparison to someone just taking a photograph of themselves, which I thought was very interesting because it takes me longer. I have to look at myself a lot longer than somebody who just takes a photograph or 4 or 5 and picks one and posts it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it in comparison. And I think a lot of the, artists in the past who have done self-portraits, it's a little bit more acceptable. And I did some research on trying to find what famous artist had done the most selfies, or self-portraits. And I came up with Rembrandt, and there's an argument as to whether or not he's done like 35 or 65. And then, of course, Frida Kahlo was also very well known for her selfies, or her self-portraits, and because she put herself in a lot of her pieces. But she didn't do, I think she did all of 120 pieces, and so not all of them had herself in them. So my first goal was to do 120 selfies, and over the year, and I'm up to about 65.
And we're about halfway through the year.
Yes.
A little over, so you're a little behind.
Just a little behind. But, well, the thing is, I started in February.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you're a little ahead.
Yeah.
So Lynn, I thank you very much for that, Michelle. Jolynn, can you tell us a little bit? So you went through this process of sorting through all the artists who submitted to be a featured artist on The Abundant Artist. By the way, for those who didn't know, we had over, almost 300 submissions in the first 2 hours that we posted this online. And so we ended up having to shut it down, and Jolynn, you did the hard work of sorting through almost 300 submissions. And so from that list, we got Michelle and Belinda. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to pick Belinda?
Yes. So as I was looking at all the submissions, which were great, by the way, I was looking for the ones that were instant conversation starters, had a lot of color, excellent composition, those type of things. And what struck me the most about the selfie art was not just that selfies itself has become part of our culture, but that they were painted and it was not photography, and that was something that struck me. And there were very different poses, and it seemed like every single selfie had a different story, almost as if the artist, was telling a story about their day, based on however they felt. You could see mood, contemplation in several of the different pieces. So that was what struck me the most about this really cool selfie art. And just in general, I really was looking for something that had a lot of color and an excellent conversation starter.
Mm-hmm. And what about Belinda?
Belinda's work, oh my gosh, the color itself is what struck me, and the different layers. I'm really big into feel like layers. When your painting has a lot of layers, I feel like the artist is putting themselves on the canvas. And so those, I'm kind of freezing up here.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Are you still there, Jolynn? Okay,
is that
great.
Fine?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So the different layers, I felt a deep sense of authenticity with her art. And as far as putting herself on the canvas, that's what struck me. Just the emotion of the layers seeping through, and she was, one of the top choices. Definitely.
Nice. So Belinda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. And sorry for leaving suddenly. My connection was lost. So I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I have 3 children, twin girls and a boy. And I think I've been an artist really my whole life, but I always for a long time, I thought that art just wasn't, what I should be doing. So I went into chemistry, and then I went into art conservation, and I worked as a conservator for a while, and combined, science and art. And I knew the whole time, though, that that wasn't what I really wanted to do. So about 2008, December 2008, I hurt my back, and I have a lot of back issues. So this wasn't a new thing, but it was really bad, and it sort of propelled me forward into getting back into drawing again in my journals. And so I was doing that for a little while, and then I was like, it's time to get out of my books and onto real paper and start selling my work. I was a little tentative at first. So I started slow and got out of my books, was doing some watercolors, and then I started making them into cards and selling them just to the parents at school, and just doing, little bit by little bit, and then got back into acrylics. And at that point, I was feeling really stuck. After working in acrylics for about a year, I just felt really safe and stuck, and I didn't know how to change it. And then I did a workshop with Flora. That 2 days with her completely changed my life.
And you did, and you cut out just a bit there. Did you say you did a workshop with Flora Bowley?
Yeah. And the 2 days that I did with her just totally changed my life. I just learned, just the paint she was using was completely different than what I was using, and I had never even tried it. So just trying the fluid acrylics, trying some new materials, and having fun. Like, she was all about fun, and that's what I wanted. So I went and just started painting again in a different way, and I loved it.
So I think it's an interesting contrast between in the style of work between you and Michelle, because would you say, Belinda, that your work is more intuitive and more in the moment and not necessarily planned out?
I'm not going to do like a comparison because I can't really speak for Michelle, and I imagine.
Oh, I don't mean comparison. I just mean like, is that how you would describe your work?
Yes, absolutely. That's how. And I also tell people the way that I paint is the way that I dance. I go dancing every week, and it's really a movement practice. And painting for me is just movement with paint on paper or canvas. It's the same thing. So.
Okay. So I'd love to hear from the two of you, like, the tension between something that is a planned project and maybe something that is a little more like what Belinda's talking about, where it's more in the moment and you're not necessarily thinking about it in advance. How do you what are the good and the bad of doing those, of painting in that way?
Did you want to start, Michelle?
Okay, sure. Well, despite how it might look, my pieces aren't really all that planned. The plan is 120 pieces, and if I plan too far, I started to do some logical fallacies, and I got turned off of doing them. So I had to go back to the less planned. Okay, this is. Sometimes I take the selfie just right before I decide to paint, and I think about what I want to say while I'm painting the piece. So it all becomes a spontaneous thing, and sometimes I'm not sure what I want to say, so the piece sits until I go, okay, I'm going to write about this one today. And so that's it's not as spontaneous as just painting and dancing in front of the canvas, but it's not as well planned as it may appear.
Interesting.
And for me, I'd say that if I start to feel like I have a plan coming, like I'm trying to turn this into something composition-wise or whatever, that's when it starts to go downhill. So I have to step away, and what Michelle said, that sort of sparked something for me, which is sometimes there is a little bit of an intention around the painting. Like if it's a gift for somebody, I will hold the intention of that person in my body or in in the painting, and whatever comes up around that person will go into it. I noticed too, I was just competing in Art Battle Canada and the Alberta Provincial Championships, and my practice pieces all had hearts. So the first round, this was just last Friday, and the first round I did hearts and it felt good and I won that round, and I moved on to the final round and I thought, okay, I could do hearts again, but that feels like planning. So my best work comes through when I'm not planning and I'm really just in the moment. So I was up there, and these are 20-minute paintings, so you really just have to get it out there. And I started doing it. I wasn't doing hearts, and I had this moment of, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing, and this could get completely messed up. But I just kind of stuck with it and stuck with the, you know, the feeling of it, and it went well. And the heart did end up popping up, but that wasn't planned. So.
Nice. So, looking at, it's interesting to hear from you about where you're come from and what you're doing now. What are you looking at for the future? Where do you see your art careers going next?
Do you want me to start with that?
Sure.
Okay. Well, the first, what I want to do is I want to get this series. I often work in a series. And so I've got to get this series out of my system. And it may last longer than a year. The last one was over the summer, and then, of course, I gave myself a deadline. In this particular series, I haven't given myself a deadline. And what I'm really doing is pleasing myself, getting back into painting and doing it as regular as I wanted to do it. And so the thing is, it's taken a life of its own. So I don't know where it's going, but I just have this underlying feeling that something significant is going to happen. And I've been experimenting with, I've got a website, Mima Levan, where you can take my painting and put words on it, so that you can use my face to say anything. And then I also have been playing around with animating the selfies and kind of making fun of myself. I got one of those videos out where I used Queen's, what is it? I Gotta Break Free, and I changed words in it to I Gotta Paint Me. So I'm making fun of the culture as well. So the whole creative process is kind of going across multimedia, similar to what I did last summer, which I'm finding really fun. And it's exciting to take something that, you know, is supposed to be up on the wall and do something completely different with it. So the art, it's taking on its own life.
That's super interesting. I think your background as not only a painter but also a graphic designer has pushed you into an area that most artists would not go in making your art not just a painting but lots of different media, right? Like you've built an art website and you've built a video. A lot of artists don't do that, all of that kind of stuff. So do you think that that's your background informing that?
I think I just really love to play with the online stuff. I've had a website since when it was only HTML, and I have a passion for online stuff. I have a passion for online marketing and online. There's so much available to us as artists now that I just really want to explore everything that I can possibly do, and I get really excited when people are doing things that aren't usual or expected. And so I always kind of cling on to that and take a look at what's going on. And so I'm trying to explore those areas as well.
Interesting. So Belinda, what about you? What does the future hold for you?
I've got a couple things planned. Right now, I'm working on a 365 project. So last year, I did a selfie a day with photographs for a year, and I've been wanting to do that for years. And by the end of the year, I felt like, wow, I'm in this habit of doing something every day, so I want something new. And what I decided to do was, I'm doing these 1-inch by 1-inch squares. I drew the grid ahead of time on paper, and every day I'm drawing one thing that I like about myself. So it's called Self-Love 365, in an effort to, boost myself on days when I'm not feeling that great. So it's a lot of squares, and I'm getting that published later in the year in a magazine, but I'd really like to do some sort of book. I don't know what it looks like yet, but something where people can kind of fill it in themselves and write a bit about the process. And so that's one thing on my list. And then another one is classes. I really want to combine my passion for movement and painting together. And I've tried 2 sample classes. I invited friends over to my home, and not charging you anything, just bring me some chocolate and we'll dance and we'll paint and we'll see how it goes. And I got some great feedback, and I want to form that into like a day workshop where we build community around this stuff, and wanting to get people to be able to access that creative self, the creative source, because I feel like there's so many people in the past year that have said to me, oh, you're an artist, oh yeah, I just can't draw, or I just can't do this, or I just can't do that. And I've heard myself say it at a workshop where, a group of 22 women, and we're all doing this writing exercise, and I'm thinking, wow, all of you're such great writers. I'm not a writer. And, it's just these limiting beliefs that we have, and they're just not true. So I want to help people discover that they do have something.
I like that.
Can you hear me?
Barely. Jolynn, you have a question?
Oh, I'm having technical difficulties. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I'm having difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jolynn. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, so earlier, we were talking about this plan versus in the moment when it comes to your art, and I'm wondering, just based off your experience, how many times have you, as far as marketing goes, set out to have a marketing plan versus just in the moment sales, where you just happen to be at the right place at the right time and you strike up a conversation and then someone's buying your art? Has that happened, or has it been more sales have resulted more from planned efforts?
Who are you asking?
Both of you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Belinda.
Both Michelle and Belinda.
I just want to make sure I understand your question. It's around marketing and whether it occurs mostly in the moment or it's more of a planned effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I think most of my painting sales come from some sort of planned effort, whether it's a show. Usually, most of my stuff sells in person, so that's definitely a planned thing. But I do have the occasional, I go and I love to paint live. So if I'm painting in a coffee shop or something like that, and somebody wants to buy it on the spot, then great. Okay. So that has happened, but it's not. I wouldn't say that's as frequent. Yeah, or Facebook. Post something on Facebook. Oh, how much is that? I want that. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, for me, everything that I do beyond painting, to do with my paintings, are planned efforts. It's all marketing. What I decide to talk about with my pieces. Um, Working on the theme helps that. But I really, with this particular series, I'm looking to find followers, and that's my plan, is I want people to recognize my pieces. I'm not expecting as many sales like on the front end, but I think that if people start seeing my work on a regular basis, that they'll start getting a recognizability, and so that should lead to future sales of other work or the selfies themselves, because somebody will resonate with them. But I'm not right now going, oh, buy this right now. I'm really trying to make the collection, and so the actual show is going to have I'm expecting more of a response at the show where there'll be an actual experience with the pieces rather than, which is somewhat like blended painting live. So I may even paint some selfies live, but everything I'm doing is planned. But I have a long-term plan for these rather than what can I sell today, because I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at on everything. So that's what my plan is. So everything's planned.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why, but I'm just now making this connection that. So I think Jolynn has like a big lag. I think she's reacting to what's happening and then speaking, and we're getting her on a big lag. So Jolynn, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just having some difficulties. This hasn't happened before, and it's just. Anyway, thank you for that insight. What I was thinking about, the reason why I asked that question was because I've run into so many different artists who they're really new, emerging artists, and they don't have a plan. So they try a little bit of this, they try a little bit of that. And so would you say it is about that variety, or trying something and sticking with it until it just doesn't work anymore? Because a lot of artists that I run into want to know, what should I be doing? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be on Twitter? Should I paint live? Should I outlay the money to pay the fees for all these exhibitions? What should I do? And that's been a question that I've gotten a bit. So, I appreciate you answering that question. Belinda, did you have anything to add to that?
What's coming up for me around that question is I really hate the word should. Like, as soon as I hear it, I think, I'm not doing that. So I would just say, do what you want to do. What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What are you excited to do? Because if you're not excited to do it, you're not going to do it. It's like someone who learns, I'm a knitter too, so someone who's learning how to knit with acrylic yarn, that's just not going to, you're going to get tired of it pretty quick. You got to have something like really juicy to sink your needles into. So just use something that you really love, and if you still love it, keep doing it. And then I find that the more creative things I'm doing, the more creative ideas I get. So as you're going along, you'll have other ideas come in, and now I want to try this, and maybe that thing will drop away. I used to make, one of the first things that I started with was hand-painted magnets on these little tiles and then wood pieces, and I was selling them to knitting shops. And that was like just my little thing that I could do, because I didn't want to dream big, so I dreamed small. And it went well for quite a while, and I kept it going, but after a while it felt like I should keep making these because people like them, but it got to the point where I don't have time to make those anymore, and I don't really want to. So that's just sort of dropped away.
And I have something to add to that, is the most effective way to market yourself, I think, is to be as authentically you as possible. And people, just because you're an artist you're interesting. And a lot of artists don't think of themselves as very interesting, but to the rest of the world, being an artist is interesting. And so what I work with artists all the time with my art print business, and I run into that same thing. It's Jolynn, because they're always asking me, well, what should I be doing? How do I do this? And there is a lot of testing the market that you can do without breaking the bank. I always tell them to start off with small prints if they want to test the print market. And then don't have 50,000 of them. Just have 3 or 4. See what can happen. And so that's part of the plan is to test things without going overboard with your budget. And we're creative people, and we can figure that out. But you also have to be as authentically you, so that people can resonate with you. And you have to have something to say about your work so that it puts it in context. I have a lot of artists that don't even name their pieces. That leaves your viewer pretty much hanging because they actually want to be told kind of what you're thinking. So I fall in. So for what they should be doing, they should be doing something that they're passionate about and they love doing. Period. The rest will follow.
Well said.
As long as they don't leave it in the closet. I'm serious.
I love it. So I wanted to circle back. We heard from Michelle that her selfies were affecting people in sort of an emotional, visceral way, getting people to talk about narcissism and likening her work to photography and stuff like that. Belinda, I'd love to hear some of your audience's reaction. Like, how do people react to your work? What kind of feedback do you hear?
I get the best feedback when it's a piece that I don't like. Those are the pieces that draw people in, and I don't know what's up with that, but and I had a piece too where there was a lot of writing. This is before I sort of changed my style, and there was a lot of writing, and you could tell from the writing that I was having a rough day when I wrote that. And I remember this guy coming up to the painting and just like reading it really intently, and he burst out laughing. I just went, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, well, I get it. I relate to what you're saying. So I love that. I get a lot of people saying that it's childlike, whimsical, fun, and it's interesting to me because I have fun painting it, but I also, there are days where, maybe I'm having not so great day, and I'll paint that. I'll paint that into the painting. And it doesn't come out dark and, in neutrals. I just don't paint like that. I paint in bright colors. That's just what I do. But it still ends up looking fun. And so people think that's just how I am. I'm just this fun, loving person, right? But I'm constantly looking inward and introspective and always thinking. So, yeah, there was one comment one man made about my work, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it's not coming to me.
That's
anyway.
Okay. No, that's okay. I think that the contrast between what's happening in the inner life of the artist versus what people perceive from the finished piece is really interesting, and that's one of the reasons that I encourage artists to blog and to share their stories. Because I think that contrast is a lot of times what lets people into the art. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. Yeah, and along with Michelle's point about being authentic, I mean, I'm all about that, and I'm all about just laying myself totally open and being completely honest. You can ask me anything you want, and I'll answer it, and not just kind of gloss over it either. So. Yeah, I've been blogging for a while, and I'll blog about the bad days too, because I don't like those. I don't like the blogs where it's all everything's great and yeah, I want some realism in there too.
Michelle, what do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah, I mean, I'll actually sometimes search for something that search a subject to match my selfies. And not all my selfies are pretty. I mean, I've got some that look pretty rough. I mean, I'm making, and that's because if I made them all happy, happy, joy, joy, I'd run out of subject matter pretty quick. And people resonate with those as well as almost as much, or maybe even more. There's something about negativity that people want to validate. That okay, yes, it's okay to be negative once in a while, but we also want to remember also to be positive. But I try to put a spin on that. That okay, this is just temporary.
Yeah. So
But
I know a lot of the artists that are listening to this or watching are going to be like, "Wow, the two of them are so good at talking about their work." But I think a lot. I find this really interesting, like legitimately. If you're an artist who's totally terrified of talking about your work and you don't know what to blog about and you don't know what to say to people when they ask about your work, what do you do?
See, this is where, like, as soon as you said that, I thought, I suck at talking about my work. If someone asked me about a painting, well, what inspired you about that, or what brought you to paint that? I'm like, it just moved through me and came out on the canvas. I don't know, like, I have trouble with a specific painting, especially talking about it. But what I will say too, though, is this idea of being authentic to who you are. Like, when it comes to, if I have to give somebody an artist bio, for example, or whatever, write about myself, I don't follow what everybody else does, because when I read those, I get bored, and I just want to write what I want to read. So I try to write it the way that I paint too, just whatever comes out of me, and that's how I talk about my work.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that 100%. When I write about my artwork or I talk about my artwork, because I'm authentic with what I'm doing, I'm just being myself. I'm just being myselfie. And so, and that's kind of the whole point of this. Kind of an underlying theme with my selfies is I want to be myself, and this is like me pounding myself in the head. You need to continue to be yourself, rather than what sells really well is landscapes. Well, that's torture for me. So it's okay for me to be completely, myself and be authentic. And that's why I believe that my long-range plan fits into my marketing, because I'm not looking for sales tomorrow. I'm looking for sales later. And so to come back to that. But yeah, when I write about things, I mean, I write about things that I feel visceral about. Stuff I'm happy about, correlations that I see in social media. I guess I've got a little. My husband sits down. I'll sit down and start writing, and in an hour I'll have a blog done. And he's like, "How do you do that?" I'm just writing my thoughts down, and if they don't like it, the better, because then I'm going to get people replying, and I'm going to get a lot of interaction online, which I'm looking for. I mean, that's what art's about, communication and reaction.
Yeah, I love it. So it's funny that Belinda, that you're like, oh, I suck at talking about my art, but we've had this 45-minute conversation about your art. So
I'm my own worst critic. I've already said that, so yeah.
Yeah, we all are. So we're getting close to time here, but as we wrap up, I want to hear from each of you, and you, Jolene, as well. If somebody wanted to follow up with you and find out more about your work, where would they get a hold of you, and what's the best way to interact with you?
I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook. Fireman Bell is my Facebook page. Twitter, Belinda Fireman. BelindaFireman.com is my blog. And I'm on Google Plus too. I don't know if anyone else is there, but I'm on there. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, Tumblr. I even got on Tumblr the other day. So Instagram.
I've got a website, michelleleban.com. I also am on Facebook, and I've got a page and profile. I'm on Google Plus, Twitter. My Twitter handle, though, is my business, Art Print Express. But so I've got kind of dual personalities online, or actually, like 60 personalities online plus. Yeah.
We'll wait for Jolene's lag to kick in.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I feel like everything is slow motion. I apologize for that. Corey.
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us how to follow up with you, Jolene.
Yeah, I'm everywhere on the internet at Jolyn GC, JLYNGC, Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus, and Facebook.
Excellent. So we will have all those links up on the featured artist page. You can go to theabundantartist.com/blog to see this video, as well as see a little more art by Belinda and Michelle. We have some galleries put up there on those pages that will allow you to take a look at some of their art, as well as link back to their websites. So thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks for being a part of the community, and tell all your friends about the Abundant Artist and about each other's amazing art.
Will do.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.